Pagan theologian and spiritual seeker and writer, Ilia de Leo, wrote in her Advent blog the following: Advent is coming to a new consciousness of God, already loving us to something new and more whole. We're not waiting for something that's not there, but to be attending to what's already there, Jesus alive in our midst. I'm going to repeat that second part again, because that's the theme of my whole poem. We're not waiting for what's not there, but for attending to what's already there, Jesus alive in our midst. This is about the third time, friends, I've used this quote in a homily. And every other time, people ask me for the reference. So, if you would like to get the link to this 7 or 8 minute video, just make sure you give me your email. I'll be happy to email it to you. It's very powerful, very, very powerful. Well, here we are on the fourth last Sunday of Advent, and as I said in the beginning, the shortest Advent possible, with literally hours before the Christmas season begins this afternoon in our side chapel here at 4:30 with the singing of the first Vespers of Christmas. The church is still inviting you and me to prepare. De Leo's statement of Christ already there is very provocative for me. It's been a kind of invitation to look at life, my experiences, and try to discern where and how God has already interacted with me. So if you're asking yourselves, what can I possibly do in this short time of an Advent to prepare? Here's a suggestion. Before we sing the Alleluias and the O Come, Come, O Faithful and all the other beautiful hymns, we could look inside ourselves and try to discern where and how God has been in our lives now, not necessarily in the past, but now. I did this, and I like to share 2 personal experiences where I feel that God has blessed me with such an insight. Just 5 or 6 weeks ago, I sat beside a man who was convalescing in his bed in a rehab in Westchester. He started talking about his life. He related how fortunate he was to have a loving wife, have 4 wonderful adult children, and grandchildren whom he loved to pick up at school. And he talked about one friend that he had, first business they met years ago, and over the years they became true friends and even brothers. It was an incredible conversation for me. And as I listened, I thought to myself, this is not a conversation about why the Flyers lost their winning streak this past week. This is something very, very substantial. I felt then, as I do now, that there was a bit of the divine in my friend's words. He died this past week, and now his words are all the more meaningful to me. Joseph Stausenberger, in his book Mystery and Tradition, talks about a notion in Irish spirituality. And that notion is a concept which he calls thin places. Thin places. I never heard of this myself. I was interested in reading it, and I think it fits with what I'm saying. Thin places, he says, are places where the borderline between heaven and earth, the spiritual realm and the material, is not so thick. There are times and places where the veil separating us from God is lifted just a bit. It's like a sacred twilight zone, he says. And the encounters we have with other people are are sparks of the divine presence that we miss unless we fine-tune our God sense. Maybe that's what Advent's all about. Fine-tuning our God sense. The second experience of where I think the Lord has not only interacted with me personally, but with the entire global Roman Catholic Church was this past week. And the pronouncement from Pope Francis in the Vatican that now priests can bless people in same-sex unions. I don't know if you've heard about that. And reading various blogs, I can see it's something that elicited quite a bit of reaction. And in the document, he makes it perfectly clear that, yes, bless the people, but not to confuse it with the sacrament of marriage. Catholic Church still holds that's between a man and a woman. And a second refinement, this was new to me, is that the blessing is not a ritual blessing. It's a pastoral one. The ritual one, when I to explain, is a blessing that happens in a rite, in a ritual like Mass. The blessing at the end of Mass, for example, is a ritual blessing. At the end of a baptism, for example, there's a blessing of the mom and the dad, the baby, and everybody there present. That's the ritual blessing. If someone comes up to a priest and says, "Can you bless my rosary?" or "Can you come bless my mother who's going to have surgery?" that, I believe, is a pastoral one. But despite the distinctions, I think the whole world experienced such a thin place, the way the Irish say it, a place where perhaps the Lord has intervened, and where in the past, gay men and women were relegated to the fringe, and where the church didn't seem to open her arms to these people, now there's a gesture of blessing. I have a high school friend who has a gay son. And about 20, 30 years ago, he came to talk to me because he was having a hard time with it. And the boy evidently said to his father, "You know, Dad, to be labeled of an inordinate nature, how would you like to be called that?" he said to his father. And he said it wasn't just anybody saying that. It was the Vatican who had said that about gay people. And so, mercy, compassion, forgiveness, that's what has come through to me with Pope Francis's proclamation. A thin space indeed. We just had, a little bit more than 5.5 hours of Advent. And the charge for the church is inviting you and me to today, I submit, is to try to look for one of those thin places, or those special moments, where the veil between us and God is just lifted a bit, where, as the Leo says, we can see Christ, who's already there, but perhaps in a new and a different way. Maybe that would be our prayer today, on this very short fourth Sunday of Advent. And may God bless us all with the experience of such